They are aware of your might and are terrified. You are not a normal person. You don't lead a random existence. You have been chosen. You have been called. You got a mission. They understood this from the outset. They saw your potential. They noticed your brightness. And that is precisely why they wanted to stop you. But they neglected one thing. Humans cannot modify their destiny. This isn't a game. This is a conflict fought on an invisible battlefield. Words become weapons. Thoughts become strategies. They've formed an alliance against you. They have used every tactic to denigrate you, sap your energy, and obstruct your progress. But they couldn't put out the heavenly flame within you. Because true power lies not outside, but inside. Your ascension is unavoidable. Now is the moment to decide. Either you will bow to your old bonds and accept the tale they have written about you, or you will awaken your inner warrior and craft your own fate. Remember, nothing that stands in the way of a chosen one can last forever. Now stand up, write 77 in the comments, and continue walking. The air was filled with unspoken hatred. An unseen storm was rising into space between them, eyes locked and teeth clenched. This was more than simply a heated argument. It was the discovery of a buried reckoning. The long-awaited time had arrived. The foundation of deception had crumbled, and what had previously been kept in whispers and half-truths was now screaming into the darkness. There will be no more pretense or deliberate avoidance. There was simply the direct, unfiltered result of lying. The stillness preceding the first punch was louder than any allegation. It was inevitable, the type of truth that does not remain silent in the background, waiting for permission to be uttered. It forces its way out, destroying everything in its path. This wasn't about one dispute or a long-held animosity. This was a reckoning that had been simmering under the surface, a fire in the making, and they were suddenly faced with the weight of what they had denied for so long. All that remained was the effect of words failing, tempers flaring, fists flying, and speaking the language of what had gone unsaid. It didn't simply involve one person. It was about the impact of disclosure on individuals who had spent years avoiding it. This was a conflict that went far deeper than flesh. A confrontation of reality and resistance in which delusions had nowhere to escape. And the force at the core of it all, irrefutable and unshaken, was too powerful to ignore. This was when the facade shattered. They understood they had no more control over what had been set in motion. The walls of deception had fallen, and standing amid the ruins, they felt the weight of their own decisions, weighing down like an anchor. They believed they could contain and suppress it. We have enough diversions to hide what was apparent. However, deceit is a lengthy process that cannot be reversed once it begins. The reality they dreaded had coiled around them, like shackles tightening with each breath, every second spent denying what could no longer be denied. It had never been about victory or defeat. It had always been about how long they could avoid the inevitable. There was no longer somewhere to flee. The air was filled with silent wrath, an unseen storm gathering in the space between them, eyes locked, mouths clenched. This was more than simply a heated argument. It was the discovery of a buried reckoning. The long-awaited time had arrived. The foundation of deception had crumbled, and what had previously been kept in whispers and half-truths was now screaming into the darkness. There will be no more pretense or deliberate avoidance. There was simply the direct, unfiltered result of lying. The stillness preceding the first punch was louder than any allegation. It was inevitable, the type of truth that does not remain silent in the background, waiting for permission to be uttered. It forces its way out, destroying everything in its path. This wasn't about one dispute or a long-held animosity. This was a reckoning that had been simmering under the surface, a fire in the making, and now they were faced with the weight of what they had resisted for so long. All that remained were impact words, frayed tempers, igniting fists, and expressing the language of what had gone unspoken. It didn't simply involve one person. It was about the impact of disclosure on individuals who had spent years avoiding it. If you are experiencing an excess of divine love in your heart, now is the moment to share it. You may help spread God's blessings by clicking the super icon. Click the thank you button on YouTube and contribute $20 or more. This wonderful gift will affect not just your life, but also the souls of countless others. Each of you has a holy position in God's great purpose through this platform, and your giving will provide fruit for our prayers. Act now. Share your benefits to honor His kingdom. You were meant to do much bigger things in God's loving hands. May God bless you. This was a conflict that went far deeper than flesh. A confrontation of reality and resistance in which delusions had nowhere to escape. And the force at the core of it all is obvious. Unshaken was a presence too large to ignore. This was when the facade shattered. They understood they had no more control over what had been set in motion. The walls of deception had fallen, and standing amid the ruins, they felt the weight of their own decisions, weighing down like an anchor. They believed they could contain and suppress it. We have enough diversions to hide what was apparent. However, deceit is a lengthy process that cannot be reversed once it begins. The reality they dreaded had coiled around them, like shackles tightening with each breath. Every second spent denying what could no longer be denied. It had never been about victory or defeat. It had always been about how long they could avoid the inevitable. There was no longer somewhere to flee. The illusions they clung to were crumbling, exposing a reality they had long refused to confront. The weight of falsehood had reached its limit, and the truth was bursting through like sunlight through a storm. What appeared to be unbreakable was crumbling in front of their very eyes. The vibe had altered. What had been hidden couldn't stay hidden much longer. The equilibrium had been upset, and the repercussions were no longer a distant possibility, but a force is pressing in from all sides. Certain things can be postponed, but never avoided. This reckoning had begun long before they understood it. They believed that, like a candle in a glass box, the flame of truth might be drowned, controlled, or veiled from the winds of revelation. A divine fire cannot be contained. The Almighty's breath moves where it wills, and when it arrives, it sweeps through the falsehoods like a powerful hurricane, removing every illusion, shadow, and falsehood that stood in the way of what was always meant to be revealed. You cannot mute what was spoken into being by the very hand of creation. You can't modify a light that was designed to shine. And now the light has arrived, cracking through the walls of concealment, tearing away the veils they had so carefully woven together, revealing what was always destined to come to light. There is no stillness profound enough to conceal the inevitable. They tried. Oh, how? They sought to hide the truth, pretending to construct a great illusion. Their version of events would go uncontested. However, secrets, no matter how skillfully concealed, eventually emerge. The undertone of mistrust has been growing. Now the dam had burst. No more whispered chats in quiet areas. No more silent moves behind closed doors. The words they whispered in the shadows had now become the stones that would lead to their downfall. What they thought was safely hidden has begun to emerge in ways beyond their control. What they feared the most had arrived at their door, and there was no turning it away. The walls they created for safety have become a prison. The very structures they relied on, the networks, they relied on the tails. They spun very gently. Each one is moving under them, unstable, untrustworthy, and coming apart like sand between open fingers. The weight of exposure was pushing down, heavy, unrelenting, and unstoppable. The fact had become too enormous and overwhelming to be disregarded. And suddenly, everything based on illusion was collapsing under the pressure, buckling beneath the pressure of what was always destined to come to light. They believed they could play. Both sides mutter one thing in the dark, then announce another in the day. Speak with two languages and walk with two faces, persuading the world that you are someone you are not. However, there is a penalty to dishonesty. You cannot stand in the midst of divine order and expect to manage your way out of it. What they believed was clever was, in fact, a long and deliberate slide toward their own destruction. The moment they decided to go against what was right, they determined their path. When they chose to betray what was divinely ordained, they walked into the consequences of their own actions. The weight of their decisions is no longer merely a personal problem. It's written all on their faces and can be felt in every place they enter. Linger for too long, conversations are broken short when they enter. Their formerly confident presence now feels uncertain, fractured, hesitant. People perceive them differently now. The picture they portrayed is no longer credible. The power they relied on has begun to erode, and no amount of control can grasp what is already being taken away. It is not punishment. It's simply the way things are. What is constructed on lies will never last. What is established via falsehood will never last. The shaking has arrived. What remains will be just what is anchored in reality. And you haven't had to raise a hand. You did not have to force anything. The truth isn't a struggle to wage. It is an autonomous force that moves through every event, discussion, and alteration in the environment. You do not pursue justice. Justice has already been put in motion. You do not desire vengeance. The divine has already accounted for every word said. Every step was made. Every deceit is attempted. Like a tree planted by the river, you have no fear of the shifting winds. Storms may occur and rain may fall, but your roots go deep, anchored in something far bigger than what can be seen. The world may quake. People may turn, and the cacophony of accusation may increase. But you stay solid, unshaken, and unmovable. Because when God plants anything, no storm, betrayal, or opposition can destroy it. What is established under heavenly hands will stand the test of time. Seasons come and go, but the truth remains constant. And you were never supposed to waver in the face of anything transitory. So you are not frightened, stirred, or concerned by the events that are unfolding. Because when you are in sync with divine truth, there is no need for reaction. The power lies in pushing ahead. The power is in understanding that the storm simply prepares the path for something bigger. And as the dust settles, the false voices go mute. When everything that was constructed on pretense crumbles, the only thing that remains is what was always supposed to endure. They never expected the truth to slip through the cracks. They felt that if they covered enough ground, controlled the right people, and said the right words at the right moment, they might influence the result. However, they failed to recognize that truth is something that cannot be managed. Truth is like the sunrise. It always arrives. No matter how long the night or how dark the illusion, the light will emerge. And what was hidden will be revealed for what it really is. Dear brothers and sisters, may God's peace come upon you today. I'm here to remind you of a fundamental fact. Our existence is based on God's divine purpose and is unaffected by worldly worries. According to the Bible, everything is done with faith will be returned to God with great blessing. Luke 638. Like the enormous oak tree, our roots are profoundly embedded in God's global truth. His power secures every stride and every stance we take. And now you have the opportunity to be a part of that blessing. When you use the subscribe or super thank you buttons to make a donation, This movement will reward you 100-fold. They carefully constructed their illusions, telling stories that serve their goal and creating traps with words loaded with deception. They devised plans, computations, and arrangements, believing they could move unobserved. But the unseen sees everything. The divine doesn't require whispers or confessions. Every idea, purpose, and covert movement has already been accounted for. Simply ignoring deceit does not make it go away. It accumulates, it develops, and when the time comes, it falls under its own weight. And now they can feel it, the unwinding, the shift, the moment when control slips from their grasp. And the same things they trusted to protect them are now working against them. Their shackles have replaced the falsehoods that previously protected them. The same individuals they hoped to persuade are now viewing them with fresh eyes. What they previously carried with confidence has become weighty with anxiety, because there is no stable basis without truth. Like a river formed by God, truth does not require permission to flow. It moves anywhere it pleases, reshaping landscapes, cutting across the mountains, making the toughest stone into dust. No dam constructed by humans can prevent what was always destined to break through. No amount of planning, plotting, or resistance can stop the course of divine justice. When the floodgates open and the weight of what has been hidden falls into the world, nothing remains. Nothing can stop it, because what the Most High says will always come true. No force on earth, no deception, no manipulation can change what was predetermined before time began. They believed they could control how things would end. They believed they could reorganize the pieces in their advantage. They strategized, spoke in secret, and developed their plans under cover of darkness, believing they had complete control. However, deceit can only go so far before colliding with something more powerful. A falsehood can spread quickly, but the truth does not. Truth is what lasts. And when the truth appears, it does not compromise. It does not seek permission. It does not wait to be greeted. It comes like a raging torrent, sweeping away every deception, plan, and carefully crafted illusion. And you never had to pursue them. You've never had a battle, because the war was never yours. It was addressed before it ever started. The divine does not require protection. It speaks for itself. The truth does not require an army. It stands on its own. You were never supposed to lower yourself to the ground and wrestle with lies. You were never asked to prove what was always obvious. When you carry a light, darkness exposes itself. When you walk with heavenly power, every deception falls beneath the weight of reality. They believed they could alter the tale, but the ink was already dry. They felt that if they acted swiftly enough and controlled enough voices, they could influence the outcome. But they neglected one thing. What God has ordained cannot be reversed. What is set in motion by heavenly hands cannot be undone by human plans. And suddenly the earth underneath them is trembling. What they've constructed is crumbling under the weight of their own lie, weighing down like an awful load. The words they said in confidence are now the same words that reveal them. The same hands that used to mislead are now trembling from the repercussions of their own actions. They sense it now, the shift, the unraveling, the irrefutable truth seeping in like the first light after a long night. Their grasp is weakening, their control is disintegrating, and their influence is dwindling. They can sense how the air affects the way eyes look at them, the way they speak. They no longer bear the same weight as before, because trust cannot be repaired with hollow apologies, nor can respect be restored via frantic explanations. What is based on falsehood will inevitably fall, and the time for pretending is over. And you continue walking. You don't turn around to see them crumble. You do not waste time proving what is obviously obvious. Because truth does not take effort to maintain. It stands on its own. You are not burdened by their demise, since it was never your priority. Your gaze is ahead. Your call is higher. Your fate was never bound to their favor, and your path was never determined by their acceptance. The closed door behind you is not a loss. It was for protection. The folks who turned away were not failures. They were a lesson, and the conflict you never had to wage wasn't yours in the first place. It was already won before you came into this situation, like a guy attempting to hold back the tide with his bare hands. They believed they could halt what was already in motion. They stood on the brink of the water, telling the waves to withdraw. They believed that their words had power over something that was never under their control. But the tide does not respond to human speech. It moves with increased vigor. A supernatural rhythm was established long before they realized they had impact. And now, as the water rises and the truth emerges, they are starting to comprehend. They never fought you. They were battling the inevitable. They were resisting what was always going to be. And no amount of opposition, stratagem, or trickery can overcome what is divinely ordered. They will realize in their own time that what they battled against was never simply you. They believed they were pushing against a person whom they could quiet, influence, or dominate. However, they were opposing something far larger. They were striving to exert control over something that was beyond their reach. They stood in the path of an unstoppable force. And now, when the dust settles and the truth remains unshaken, they are forced to confront what they worked so hard to escape. The consequences of their decisions are no longer an unseen burden. It is real, palpable, and exerts irrefutable force. The phrases they previously said with ease suddenly seem heavy on their tongues. The same confidence they once had is now mixed with uncertainty. They see it in the way people look at them and in the way the air around them is altered. Conversations that formerly flowed naturally suddenly fall hollow. Their hitherto unwavering trust has evaporated. It slips through their fingers like sand. Deception has an expiry date. It may last for a season. It may be convincing for a minute. The truth always has. The final say and truth are not rendered void. It makes no apologies for its entrance. It does not hesitate to express itself. And now, when it sets in a place, those who opposed it must accept the reality they made for themselves. They desired control. They sought to determine the terms. They wanted to decide what they saw, what was believed, what was recalled. But the instant they went against what was right, they sealed their own doom. Some things cannot be rewritten. Deception cannot erase certain stories. And now they find themselves standing amid the rubble of their own handiwork, looking at the shards of a foundation that was never built to last. And you keep walking because this was never your weight to bear. It was never your struggle to fight. The truth does not require defenders. It does not require protection. It simply exists, and now it rises tall, moved by the fleeting tumult. You go forward not in response to them, but as a reflection of your own personality. Your steps are in order. Your objective is apparent. And while others deal with the repercussions of their own decisions, you stay stable. Not because you battle for this moment, but because you were always destined to be here. There is no resistance. No resistance. No amount of lying would change that. Because God writes the tale, and no man can change the finale when the divine moves. No power can keep it back. And as you stride ahead, unaffected by the wreckage behind you, one thing is certain. What was meant for you is always yours. No fight is necessary. There's no reason to struggle. Just miraculous alignment at the precise time, bringing you exactly where you were always intended to be. But you ascend. Not by force, not by retaliation, not by proving yourself, but by just following your destiny. The storm didn't shake you. It revealed you. The conflict didn't shatter you. It positioned you. And suddenly, everything fits into place just as it should. You go on, unconcerned, unstoppable, and completely victorious. So you're not distracted by what they say. I was unmoved by their attempts to alter the narrative. Because what was founded upon falsehood would inevitably crumble beneath the weight of truth and truth. The truth does not haste. Truth does not yell. Truth does not ask for attention. It simply is, and when all else fails, it will be the only thing left standing. It's time to spread God's blessings by pressing the super thank you button on YouTube. You may support his goal and be a part of this holy mission by donating. Every contribution symbolizes God's generosity, and I think it will return to you enormously, far above your expectations. Remember that his protection and blessing are with you every step and every donation. You become a part of his divine plan. You are a powerful, dazzling entity, as solid as the massive rock that saw God's marvels. Feel the rewards of your kindness in your spirit, and light up the world with confidence and bravery. Be blessed, and let the light of the Lord lead you. You go onward, unaffected by their disarray or demise, because you were never asked to remain in the ruins. You weren't supposed to get caught up in their desperation. The moment they chose deceit, they chose their fate. And you continue walking because what is ahead of you is bigger than whatever they attempted to take from you. Your steps are in order. Your foundation is sturdy. And while others struggle to cling on to what was never truly theirs, you advance via divine alignment rather than force or revenge. What was designed to damage you has now become the same thing that has raised you up. The storm did not shatter you. It revealed you. The struggle did not vanquish you. It prepared you. And now, when the dust settles and the noise fades, there is only one thing left. The purpose, promise, and destiny that was always yours to walk into. They felt they could navigate both worlds, play the faithful while betraying, and maintain the illusion of honesty while engaging in deception. However, global law cannot be manipulated. When they chose to go against what was right, they sealed their own fate. The world around them was changing, and their power was disappearing like a candle straining against the wind. The eyes that had previously appreciated them now asked questions. Their relationships seemed frail, fading away with each passing instant. It wasn't retaliation. It was the undoing of their own plan. No foundation founded on lies can last indefinitely. Nothing had to be forced. The natural order was already in action. The moment had arrived when quiet spoke louder than confrontation, and the act of going onward held more weight than any retort. No retribution was necessary. The course had been determined, and everything would happen in its own time. While they grappled with the weight of their decisions, the way ahead remained open and unimpeded. The true transformation occurs not during the commotion of disclosure, but rather in the silence that follows, where truth rules undisturbed, unshaken.